Hi, welcome to the Personal History Hub. This is our second medicine content video, and it's all about the treatment and prevention of illness in the Middle Ages. So let's have a look at religious and supernatural treatments to start with. So as the church taught that disease was sent by God as a punishment for your sins, it followed that the cure should also involve the supernatural. So religious treatments included healing prayers and incantations, which is a kind of spell, paying for a special mass to be said, fasting, so that means going without food. Pilgrimages to the tombs of people noted for healing powers became extremely popular. Sometimes the sick were discouraged from seeking cures. After all, if God had sent the disease to purge the soul, it was important for the disease to run its course. Taking medicine to cure the disease might keep you alive, but it would mean that your soul would be stained with sin. That meant risking not being admitted to heaven when you died. So astrology. Star charts were also important for diagnosing illness. The alignment of the planets was checked during herb gathering, bleeding, purging operations, even cutting hair and nails. So let's have a look at humoral treatments as well, so more natural treatments. Bloodletting or phlebotomy. So this was the most common treatment. Bad humours could be removed by removing blood. It was such a common procedure that most physicians or doctors did not carry it out themselves. It was usually done by a barber surgeon or by women. It was done in different ways. Okay, so type could be cutting a vein. So to cut a vein, blood was usually let from a vein near the elbow, and charts were used to show what points needed to be bled. They might use leeches, so these were collected and kept hungry for a day before being placed on the skin, and they were used for people whose age or condition made traditional bleeding too dangerous. And then finally, cupping. So the skin was cut, then a heated cup placed over the cut to create a vacuum. This drew blood out. For women, children, and the very elderly, different areas were cupped to draw out different illnesses. Sometimes patients were bled for too long and died. Evidence suggests that this was quite common and it was probably seen as a necessary hazard. So purging was also common as well. Purging the digestive system was to remove leftover food. The patient could be given something to make them vomit or a laxative to clear out the body. Laxatives were very common, and some well-known examples include mallow leaves stewed in ale and linseeds fried in hot fat. So remedies. People were given herbal infusions to drink, sniff, or bathe in. Some are still used today, like aloe vera, to improve digestion. And then finally, bathing. So warm baths were regularly prescribed to help the body draw in heat to help dissolve blockages in the humours. So how did they prevent disease happening in the first place? So most people believe the best way to prevent disease was to lead a life free from sin. Regular prayers, confessions, and offering tithes worked together to ensure that minor sins were forgotten. Hygiene. So the regimen sanitatis was a loose set of instructions provided to patients to maintain good health. Only the wealthy could afford a private bath of hot water. A public bath or stews were available for a fee. Poorer people swam in rivers to keep themselves fresh. People washed their hands before and after meals, and they did believe that cleanliness was next to godliness, so it was important to stay clean. Diet. What and when you ate was considered important. Eating too much was discouraged. And then purifying the air. So lavender was often spread. Sometimes it may be placed inside a piece of jewellery or a locket to wear around the waist. Local authorities did try to tackle bad air. They tried to ensure there was no rotten animals left around, and they pulled down or cleaned smelly public toilets. The medieval medics, so basically who treated the sick. So most people in the Middle Ages would have been treated at home by a female family member. Women also acted as midwives. Asking for medical opinion costs money, and most people were not willing to spend it even if they had it. However, there were treatment options for people that were willing to pay. So one of those options was a physician or a trained doctor. So new universities were set up across Europe, including Oxford and Paris. Medieval doctors were called physicians, and a physician appointment would follow 3 stages. The physician would examine your urine, feces, and blood. He would then consult astrological charts, looking when the patient was born and when they became sick. based upon this and the humoral tendencies of the patient, who would then recommend a treatment. It was then up to less trained and lower paid professionals to carry out the treatment. For most of the period, it was because many physicians were clergymen, so members of the church. They were forbidden from carrying out procedures such as bleeding themselves. So apothecaries, they mainly used herbal remedies, usually passed down by family members. They were not considered as skilled or knowledgeable as physicians. They also prescribed poison. This rule went against an idea fundamental to physicians, and the rule went all the way to Hippocrates and still exists today, the Hippocratic Oath. Many apothecaries also dabbled in the supernatural, so they provided amulets and charms. This was frowned upon by the Church, which meant the divide between the physicians and apothecaries was even wider. So, surgeons. Barber surgeons were the least qualified medical professionals in Europe. Since good barbers had sharp knives and a steady hand, they regularly performed small surgeries as well, such as pulling teeth and bleeding patients. In medieval England, a skilled surgeon could set a broken limb or remove an arrow. So, where were the sick actually cared for? Hospitals. By 1500, there were an estimated 1,100 hospitals, ranging from just a few beds to hundreds. Many hospitals did not actually treat the sick, but they offered hospitality, which is how hospitals got their name. About 30% of the hospitals were owned and run by the church in the Middle Ages. These were run by monks and nuns who lived nearby in monasteries. Medieval hospitals were good places to rest and recover. They would have been very clean, and it was a large part of the nuns' duties to do the washing and make sure everywhere was clean. This meant that for people not suffering from a terminal illness, hospitals were probably quite successful. Many European hospitals employed physicians, but there is no evidence to say English hospitals did the same. Infectious or terminal patients were often rejected from hospitals. Prayer or penance could do nothing for them. However, patients who had a chance of recovery were able to see the altar and even participate in church services from their beds to help to heal their souls. Home. The vast majority of sick people were cared for in the home. It was expected that women would care for their relatives and dependents when needed. This care would have involved making the patient comfortable, preparing restorative foods, and mixing herbal remedies. Women would also be responsible for the garden, where they may grow various plants known for healing, such as marigold and clover. So this picture actually shows a medieval hospital from 1482, and as you can see, some of the patients are actually sharing beds, which was normal at that time. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Personal History Hub. The next video is going to be on the Black Death.